We met last night, we talked this morning.
All right, I got.
Are we on, Josephine?
On my end, it says I have a little bit more to go before
Okay.
we're live on YouTube. Okay, we are live.
Okay, so I want to welcome everyone, and to the Zoning and Land Use Committee members, I want to welcome you to the May-June Marathon and Mayhem meeting period. We have many items on our agenda, and we will be meeting quite frequently in the next few weeks. Okay, but it's always nice to start a meeting with a really positive thing, a group working to preserve the character of our neighborhood and to highlight it by asking for land marking. So I don't know who's doing the presentation, so please begin.
So
Julia Osborne, Julia, you're going to be giving the presentation, correct?
I am.
Okay, and I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, hopefully this will work.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see it?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, excellent. Okay. So I want to thank you, Josephine. I want to thank you, Doris, and all the members of the Land Use and Zoning Committee to agree to meet a little earlier than usual to listen to our request. I am representing the 74th Street 400 Block Association, and you've already noticed that many of our members are here tonight to listen. So I'm Julia Osborne, and just to orient you, our block, 74th Street, is between 4th and 5th Avenue. It's just north of the Doctors Row Historic District on 75th Street. And what we are asking is for support from Community Board 10 as we put in our request to the Landmarks Preservation Commission for historic districting. Just briefly, since we have so many members of our block here, I want to just tell you a quick bit about the Block Association. We have been started as an informal Google group about 5 years ago. It's been a very amiable and neighborly group of people. We began by talking about the trash on our street. Different people volunteered to do different kinds of trash pickup and collection. Someone even got sanitation to bring in an additional trash can for us. We moved on from there to our wish to see more trees on the block. And many of the members who are here tonight listening, they know who they are, have requested trees, put in requests, but one person in particular, Darren, who's here listening, had really pushed this forward by actually drawing a map of our street and where blocks where we needed trees, and getting that to Councilman Brennan's office, getting his support. And I'm happy to say that we have trees, 8 new trees. They're a week and a half old. So just a shout out to everybody on our block that really worked on that. While we were talking trees, we also became very interested in what was going on 75th Street, and we followed it closely. Different Block Association members went off to meetings, the meeting at Our Lady of Angels Church. One person went to the annual preservation conference and sent our whole Google group written notes about historic preservation. I held meetings in my house. So we've been active now for quite some time. And as we began to do our research into historic districting, we realized we needed a little more professional help. So we took up a collection and we paid Henry Stewart to gather all the history about our block. And that resulted in an 18-page document about the people who lived here and all the wonderful things they had done. Of course, I'm not going to submit that to you for your reading, but we did extract pieces of that information in our statement of significance. Just, Josephine, are you able to scroll to the next page?
Yes.
Okay. So here's our request. It has many different parts. The statement of significance you can read at your leisure, but I'll just highlight a few things. Thank you, Henry, for providing us with information. We had one builder on the the northern set of houses, Irving Halpern in 1909, who named his construction work, you can, yeah, I think leave it there. It's too hard
Okay.
to read the text.
Okay.
He named his buildings New Spotless Row because on 72nd Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue, he had built a row of houses called Spotless Row. So, so he was a little creative there with the naming. We have a second builder who is responsible for all the houses on the southern row. You're looking at that scene right there. And he liked his work so well that he designed himself a double wide house at the end of the block, and he lived in it for his entire life. So you'll see a picture of that later. So this was a community from the get-go where people were very involved. We can scroll down a little bit and I'll show you the map of our proposed boundaries. You know what? Yeah, I think one more. Yeah, this is the map of the boundaries that we're proposing because these houses were all built by 2 different builders. Of course, we realize that the commission can choose the boundaries for themselves and may have a different idea, but this is our proposed historic district. Josephine, can you scroll up to some of the pictures? I want to just point out some of the architectural features that we think make this block worthy of note. Right there is great.
Okay.
Okay, if you look at the photograph on the left side of the page, you're going to see that these buildings all have intact cornices. Those are the decorative molding, thank you, Josephine, that joins the roof and front walls. If you look at the middle photograph, there's a really interesting story about this. Those doors look as if they're original. I will tell you that they are lovingly handmade doors that the resident of that house created in order to have an architectural feature that was respectful of the design of the block. They're absolutely gorgeous. And there are already 2 families on the block who would love to be able to have doors just like this. So hopefully if we have historic districting, there'll be some funding for people who really want to create something that lovely. On the right, you see the beautiful wrought iron fencing. This has been added after the original builders built the buildings, but it's consistent throughout the street and very lovely. Let's go to the next set of photos. Here are a few more architectural details. On the left, you see an incised house number on the stone steps. In the middle, again, another view of the cornices and also of the beautiful detailing around the windows in the middle picture. And then on the right, Irving Halpern left us a little memento of his work, which is the beautiful incised and carved limestone at the end of the block near to 4th Avenue. Let's go to the next set of pictures. Okay, so here you can see the doorways are bounded by Corinthian columns. These houses all have the original double doors, and you see the nice beauty of the wrought iron work in front of the houses going up the steps in front of the windows. So we can skip now past the proposed boundaries and go to this page. Just lists all the details of the architectural features of the houses that are noteworthy. I'm going to bring your attention to one thing. On the south side, house numbers with the T indicate homes that still have the original stained glass transoms over the doorways. And they're very beautiful, especially at night with the light behind them. And those stained glass transoms have the house number in them. So we made special note of that because there are still so many that exist. So let's just swing down to the next page. We've gathered a letter of support from Justin Brennan, also signed by our state senator, Andrew Gennardis. We're grateful to their support in this effort. We also have, if you scroll down, a letter of support from the Historic Districts Council. And thank you to Kelly for, first of all, many years of mentoring us through this process. And then for that letter, I have to say it's been really wonderful to receive the support of people who have been able to guide us in the right direction. If you scroll down further, you'll see here, there's Irving Halpern himself, and telling us that he has just built the new Spotless Row, and you could buy a house for $7,500.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be nice? On the right hand, you see that the New York Public Library has a 1905 map outlining the building lots that had already been designated. So let's scroll a little further down. Okay, these ads are from Boyd Wood. And if you look at the right-hand advertisement, the very far right house there in that ad is the double wide house that he lived in his whole life. It's as beautiful as it ever was. It's probably actually a little more beautiful. It has all kinds of plants around it usually. If we scroll down a little further, what you see here, interestingly, in 1909 was an article, Real Estate, talking about how the coming of the 4th Avenue subway was creating excitement and a building boom here in Bay Ridge. And that certainly was true for this street. In the middle photograph, we see the survey from New York City in 1940 of the houses on the street. When you looked at the other photographs earlier, you'll notice that people have added the wrought iron fencing. It's very tasteful and appropriate to the period. And there's much more greenery because many of the neighbors are very interested in making sure the neighborhood is actually beautifully green, which it is. On the right is a really interesting brochure that the previous owner of my house gave to me at the sale, which, yes, was the 1985 House and Gardens tour of beautiful Bay Ridge. And in the brochure, which when it opens up, you see the houses that were featured in that tour. 2 of them are on this street. And that was presented by the Alliance of Bay Ridge Block Associations. I don't know what became of that alliance. I think they must have been doing some wonderful work, and maybe we can revive that kind of work again. So we can scroll just a little bit further. And most recently, the New York Times took note of Bay Ridge, its affordability, its attractiveness, and its proximity to Manhattan. And while they posted their article in December of 2020, they included interviews by 2 members of the block, Joseph Moniaci and Mary Jean Gianquinto, who are both here listening today as well. So I would like to give a shout out to all the members of this block association who have been so consistently neighborly. For 5 years on our Google group, we have had only positive and supportive interactions with each other. It's really been wonderful. And this community engagement that we all feel has grown organically to the point where we feel confident in making this request that we become an historic district. And we seek the support of Community Board 10. These are the signatures of residents on the block who are in support of this. I will just add, I collected that during COVID, so not everybody felt comfortable answering the door. There are a few people who would like to be on that list, and hopefully now that we have an easier time of it with COVID, I can get their names on that list. So I so much thank you for listening to this presentation, looking at our request, and I hope you will feel positively towards this and support us in our efforts. Thank you. Now, Josephine, if there are any questions, I had asked Kelly to be here if they were specific questions that I couldn't answer.
Okay,
maybe
so I
you
stopped
can-
the share so I could see everyone if anyone has questions. And I just want to say, Julia, that was an excellent presentation. And I remember you attending our Landmarking 101 presentation, Kelly,
Yeah.
who did that wonderful presentation. And I just want to say, thank you again to Kelly Carroll for your work with this board throughout the years, and we really appreciate it. So Doris, I'll turn it over to you so you could.
Okay, well,
So-
I have to ask Ms. Osborne, do you live in the Safina house? Was that Maria and Joseph Safina?
I don't think it was the Safita house. I'm in 460. And I
Oh,
know,
no, definitely not. Are you almost at Fifth Avenue?
I'm almost at Fifth Avenue. I'm three
Okay.
houses in. I know there was a doctor and his wife who lived here. And the first owner was the Reverend Larson, who I spoke about in the written text because he was an internationally well-known Lutheran minister.
Because I knew that couple who lived on that block, and they had their house on that 1985 house tour.
Oh, then I could open up the brochure and see which one it was.
Okay. But then not necessary to.
You're right.
My second question is, in my recollection of the block, on the north side of the street, there's a different style of houses on part of the block.
That's toward the Fifth Avenue end.
Right, and that is not included in this.
Well, we didn't. It would be nice if the Historic Commission decides that they would include that, but we really could only document the builders
Okay.
for the buildings that we included.
Because they're uniform and they have a very distinct presence on the block also.
I think they're very attractive, and I think everyone would be thrilled if they would be included. It was just difficult to obtain architectural or building information, which I know is often wanted.
I mean, you've done a tremendous job, and I think it's a great effort and important to our community.
Thank you. It's been a
Anne.
pleasure.
Anne, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you and congratulations. Great presentation. And in the hopes that you are successful is the basis for this question. And that is, are there many houses that have been renovated in such a way as to significantly depart from the original appearance?
So no, there have not. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to take action now, because we don't want that to happen going forward. And I will just give you one little anecdote. One of the houses was recently purchased by a man who spoke only Mandarin, and he divided the house into apartments, and we became concerned about the facade of the house. I was able to have one of my Mandarin writing friends actually write him a letter of welcome and explain to him what we were trying to accomplish on this street, and to respectfully request that he leave the facade as it was. And so far he has. So he seemed very amenable. So we're trying both tactfully and in every way to keep the street facade intact.
Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I do not see any other
Yes,
questions.
Henry, I would like to thank you for your support in the historic background for the group. It's not easy to obtain that information, and it's helpful. But I remember Kelly Carroll telling us how important it was to use insurance maps. So it's been an interesting learning process for all of us.
And I want to just double that thanks to Henry. It really has shortened the time for us to gain information about our street. And I think everyone who contributed to the fee for you to do this for us was very grateful. We're very pleased with what we've read. It's been so interesting and valuable.
Thank you. I see a hand. Dawn? Dawn Elwood, is your hand up? And you're muted. You have to
I did
unmute.
not intend to raise it. If I did, that was accidental.
Okay,
But I do want to just add that I've been on the block for over 30 years and I knew the Safinas and they are just lovely. And I believe they may have been owners of your house, Julie, before the couple that you purchased from. And just
Okay.
wonderful neighbors, good people. And so I just wanted to confirm that.
Okay, nice to know.
Mary Jean, you have your hand raised.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I moved to this block in 2015, and we actually lived in downtown Brooklyn, which I learned as someone living in Bay Ridge that you call Brownstone, Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. That was the first thing that I learned. I'm a real estate agent with the Corcoran Group in Brooklyn Heights. And my experience has been that people that have been interested in the limestones, especially in the lower part of Bay Ridge, are primarily from downtown or Brownstone, Brooklyn, and they're seeking homes, limestones in particular, not the freestanding homes, but they're looking at the the attached row house limestones primarily, and they're very attracted to streets that have landmarking status because they come from a community, primarily, all the downtown areas that most of these homes are preserved. So that's something that they routinely feel very strongly about. So, not only is it important, most people move here because they love the integrity of these homes, but to keep the integrity of these homes as well.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Jean.
Okay. Doris, I don't see anyone else's hands up, so
Okay, so for committee members only,
Mhm.
we have a request from the 74th Street 400 Block Association to support their application to become a historic district. Do I have a motion to support that application? And supports? Second?
Dean Rosina, seconds. I'm going to launch polling,
Okay,
and this is for board members only, for the record. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I got the wrong one up. It's okay. That's okay. You can vote. I'll reword it later. I'll just change the,
you want to, because I didn't submit mine, I deleted it. Could you put it, how do I put it?
hold on one. You know what? I'm going to end this. I apologize. I told you that I'm going to replace it. Okay. Okay, here we go. 74th Street. Phew. Okay, did everyone vote?
Yep,
Okay. So it's unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. It feels like a
Great.
real celebration to go forward.
Congratulations.
congratulations, and thank you for all your efforts
Congratulations.
and your appreciation of your block.
So this is the committee's recommendation. The full board will be voting on June 21st at our general board meeting. You're welcome, Julia, if you'd like to attend, to be present in the event there is a question or two. But Henry is a board member, so I'm sure that if there are any questions, he'll be able to answer them. And all of our meetings are live streamed, so everyone's welcome to view them or attend as you wish. But thank you all, and you're welcome to stay. We do have some other items on the agenda that we're going to have to get to. And Kelly,
Okay.
thank you again.
Thank you again, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. I hope to see everyone in the neighborhood soon.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly.
Good luck, Kelly.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a review of the citywide hotel text amendment. The intent of this amendment is to citing of hotels in certain districts would require a special permit. And this is something that the community board requested several years ago. And we have discussed it before, but there were questions for city planning. So we will move on to that item. With city planning, We did discuss this at the last meeting, but there are a few questions, and we will discuss it further tonight.
Yeah, so Sanmati is here, who's our Department of City Planning liaison, Sanmati Naik. And so I don't know who's going to be giving the presentation, or if you have a PowerPoint. I wasn't sure how we were going to proceed, but I'm going to turn it over to you for introductions.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you for having us here. I was here last month for zoning for accessibility, and I was very happy to come back for presenting 2 more text amendments. So I'm joined here with my colleagues who are the subject matter experts on the 2 applications. Jonah Rogoff, Kate Richards, and Ben Max will be helping me with answering specific technical questions on the amendment. So I will be presenting. So let me know if you are not able to see it. And also if you can't hear me or anything, please someone just unmute and let me know because sometimes there's a connectivity issue. So I hope you can see the screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so this project, as was just announced, it's a zoning text amendment that would create a new special permit for hotels and development across the city. The goal is to create a consistent framework for hotel development, and most importantly, to ensure that hotels do not negatively affect the surrounding uses. So the project, the text amendment would, just starting with the background. This slide shows that this, actually I just spoke about this, so I'll move on to this next one. So starting with some background, this is about the growth of New York City's hotel market over the past decade. And as you can see from both the visuals, there is an upward trend in both the graphs from 2009 to 2019. And this was till just before the pandemic hit. New York City has experienced a record growth in the tourism industry, as well as the visitor trends. So New York City had 49 million visitors in 2009 and almost 67 million visitors in 2019, which has been the peak year for tourism. And the visitor count was forecasted to increase even more last year, which is no surprise to most of us, to almost 69 million. And between 2009 and 2019, the total number of hotel rooms in the city market grew from 80,000 to about 128,000. And in the past 5 years, the city has seen a 40% increase in the hotel inventory. So we can see that a sizable growth of the hotel room supply has been a constant or a prevailing factor in the city for much of the past 10 years. Now, it's interesting to note that even though that along with the increase in the hotel room supply, the demand has always been high. It's continued to rise. And it's sort of kept the annual occupancy to almost 90%. And the occupancy rates for New York City hotels has been among the highest among all the urban centers in United States. And again, not a big surprise considering it's New York. So the growth of New York City market over the last decade has been driven both by international and domestic travelers. These visitors are coming to New York City for its cultural offerings, shopping, sightseeing, and a number of other reasons. And most of them, majority of them, are international visitors. So coming to the issues that has triggered the text amendment. Firstly, there was this big concern over the rapid growth of hotels throughout the city and concerns regarding incompatibility, conflict of uses. And that's the reason several districts or special districts adopted special permits. And I know this, you are very well aware of this. A special permit for M1 district was adopted in 2018 to address the conflicts between hotels and operation of industrial businesses. And also because we did not have a consistent framework in place when reviewing new hotels, what it has resulted is different criteria for different locations and different zoning districts. And all of that has resulted in an inconsistent review of hotels. And this text amendment would address all of those concerns. So a little bit more on the purpose and needs, and there's a lot to talk about on this slide. So this map shows all the hotels in New York City. Over the past years, there's a rapid growth of hotels across different districts, and it has led to a city planning commission to adopt a variety of special permits. So in addition, in the commercial and MX or residential industrial districts, hotels have contributed with surrounding uses. Also, overnight accommodations differ from other as of right uses, which are in proximity, because they have potential to conflict with both kinds of uses. So this distinction of hotels requires additional scrutiny, and to ensure that they are developed in ways that won't create conflicts with the neighborhood uses and local businesses, this text amendment would help to address that. So while on one hand, it is important from an economic standpoint that hotels should be able to continue to locate throughout New York City. It supports vibrant tourism. Also, it meets the demands of the business community. On the other hand, the pace and the pattern of location or concentrations in certain communities, which is driven by high demand, has created conflicts and overwhelmed some communities. So as a result, in areas where hotels are currently as of right, this text amendment would create a new special permit that would require City Planning Commission, along with community board, a borough president, and city council to assess appropriateness of such development. So every time a new hotel is proposed, it would be reviewed similar to our usual procedure to ensure that the new hotel is appropriate and there are no conflicts based on in context of the future use and development of the surrounding area. So I believe this board is familiar with special permit, but if someone is new joining and not very familiar, special permit is a site-specific land use action subject to ULUR and requires an application and an environmental review procedure, which is similar to the rezoning, which is the zoning map amendments, which are the most common type of applications which come before the board. So to summarize, the purpose of this text amendment is to ensure that there is a consistent framework for new hotels. And also more importantly, it would create a predictable pattern, and we would know what would be expected and where, and also would not adversely affect the current and the potential future uses of those areas. Moving on to next slide. So this map shows applicability where the special permit would be applicable. So it would be applicable in higher density commercial districts, mixed use districts, and the M1R, which is the mixed residential and industrial use districts, where there is no special permit today. So the new special permit will also apply to all those areas which already have the special permit. Moving on to the next slide. So this is applicability in Community District 10. The hotel special permit would apply in areas where hotels are permitted as of right today, which is including the C428 district along 86th Street and the triangular C82 between the 4th and 5th Avenues. And very few, just if you see towards the north, some C23 commercial overlays, which are within 1,000 feet of Belt Parkway, because that's considered an arterial highway in zoning. Now, M1 districts would retain its current special permit because the special permit findings for M1 were specially created for light industrial areas, and the findings are unique to concerns in the M1 areas. So moving on. So that's really the main part of the presentation, but we also want to cover some recovery provisions which are included. So as you're aware, the hotel use has been one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. And to address the adverse effects experienced by the hotel industry, the city has created certain provisions to allow flexibility for the hotel industry to recover from pandemic. And I'll summarize them as follows. So the first is it would provide modified vesting provisions to facilitate projects that are already in Department of Buildings pipeline. So projects filed with the DOB prior to 2018 would need to obtain a foundation permit prior to adoption. Projects filed between Jan 2018 and the recent referral of the text amendment would need to obtain zoning plan approval from Department of Buildings prior to adoption. And both categories of projects have 6 years instead of the standard 2 from date of adoption to complete construction. And second, the approved CPC or BSA applications will not require a special permit if these applications were approved after January 1st, 2018. Applications that begin CPC public review are filed with BSA prior to adoption and will not require a special permit. And lastly, there is an extended discontinuance provision. It allows vacant hotels a little extra time to return to transient use. So usual discontinuance allows for a building that has been vacant for 2 years to reopen with its previous use. So in the current text amendment, we are proposing an extension to 6 years to allow for closed hotels to reopen. So really, these provisions are meant for the closed hotels to return, and it really helps bringing an important industry which is severely affected by the pandemic to return back some sense of normalcy. And I think this is the last slide. So to summarize, the proposal would create a new special permit for hotels. So hotels would no longer be allowed as of right, as a part of efforts to minimize conflicts with future hotel developments and also to create a consistent framework in zoning, especially as it pertains to City Planning Commission's review of new applications. And so that ends the presentation. And I know that community board had a few questions, and I will go over them. So the first was what specific zoning districts will be required to file a special permit for hotel development? And the answer is special permits would apply to all districts. After the text amendment is adopted, no districts would allow hotel as of right. So I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up the second question. I missed adding that in my notes, so just give me a moment.
If I could just comment.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
When we discussed this at our last community board meeting, our last zoning committee meeting, there was in the presentation that I saw, there was a term, it would apply to high density units, high density commercial districts. You have defined that, and that answers that question. And then, because it will apply to our C8 district, and will also apply to the C42A district, which is the area near an exit to the Gowanus Expressway. and it would apply to C2 areas within 1,000 feet of an arterial highway. So that addressed many of my concerns. So it applies to areas in our community that are very vulnerable. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. And the high density is residential districts mean R9 and R10 districts.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And
Oh, I think I actually I did address your questions during my previous slides. So if there are any other questions.
Anne has a question.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the Department of Buildings. I believe that you said that projects that were filed before 2018, would you just clarify that? And also whether it's filed is the key part or permitted?
Hey, Salmanti, I can jump in.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm a planner in the Brooklyn office. So what we're proposing is that all applications that they don't just have to be filed, but their zoning analysis has to be part of it. So they can't do like a really basic filing. It has to be a more fleshed out proposal. So we're kind of dividing it into two categories. So if a building permit is initially filed before 2018, then their foundations would have to be in place by the adoption of this citywide text amendment. If an application was filed after 2018, then they would have to receive zoning site plan approval from DOB. So not just a filed or plan, but more of a permitted, but a specific approval for the zoning site analysis. And that's just to give a little bit more flexibility for hotels that are currently in the process. But normally we would require that foundations are in by the time of adoption.
I think applications expire after a year of being filed and not approved. So would you be including projects that have been expired and want to be unearthed in and have them not be subject to the special permit?
I'm not familiar with the way permits expire, but I believe that these would have to be active permits. So it would be proposals before DOB that are in the process and being reviewed. But I'm not familiar with that 1 year expiration. So I could, but if they withdraw their application and they submit a new permit, then they would be subject to, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of that earlier, if that makes sense. So they can't just like remove their application. If they have to like update it, then they would have to comply with the more restrictive time period for having a foundation in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm just writing my notes. Okay, so for the committee members, we have discussed this previously. We have new information before us. Does anyone want to make a motion? Or Anne, is your hand up again? That's okay. Because our question was, what are high density and how did it affect the C42A and the 1,000 feet from our arterial highway. And I think additional information has been provided. So we're in quorum. Does anyone want to make a motion? Anne,
Motion to approve as submitted, as presented.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Josephine, should we take a vote?
You're muted, Joe.
Thank you, Dean. Is there any discussion?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, any discussion?
Okay, if seeing none, I will put the poll up. Bear with me. Okay, for board members only. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you. Guys, that was the easy part.
Yes, next is the more difficult. So Sanmati, I don't know if you're going to be presenting the hotel, I'm sorry, the health and fitness text amendment. We received formal notification today, although we received the EAS last week that I did send out. So we appreciate, because the board, our last meeting for the session is June 21st, and with several citywide text amendments on the horizon, I appreciate all those committee members. As Doris sent out an email last week, we are going to be dividing into working groups to really, thoroughly look through both the health and fitness text amendment that we'll be voting on at the June meeting, as well as the open restaurant text amendment. So we're happy that we could add this to tonight's agenda to begin that process. So, Sanmati?
Yeah, thank you. So the health and fitness citywide text amendment is a proposal to reduce barriers for gyms, spas, and licensed massage. Sorry, trying to find my mouse. The health and fitness facilities include a range of activities like larger gym facilities, which are the bigger chains, then the smaller studios, such as the martial arts, yoga studios, aerobics, and they also include therapeutic and wellness businesses such as spas and licensed massage therapy. As you're well aware, currently a special permit is required to open these businesses in the city. And things have changed a lot in the past decades. Since this special permit was created, there has been a significant growth in health and fitness industry. And there has been an equally strong growth in the desire for communities to access these kind of amenities as everyone is getting more health conscious and just wanting to remain fit and generally the interest in recreational activities. Additionally, regulations around massage therapy have also changed. And on a side note, because I know that this is a issue of concern for community district, massage therapists are licensed health professionals by the New York State Education Department, and a registry of all licensed massage therapists is publicly available online. So going back to the high demand, despite the fact that health and fitness facilities are generally recognized as valued neighborhood services and amenities, our zoning currently has certain impediments or regulatory barriers, which make it hard for these small businesses. Gym, spas, and massage therapy businesses continue to be regulated through zoning, and it places significant burdens on these businesses. On average, a special permit for these would require more than 6 months to be granted, and the costs they're huge. They run from 30 to 50,000 in fees to the consultants going through the process. In addition, the special permit is not available in most C1 districts. So meaning just the spas and small gyms and studios are currently not allowed in locations where we would allow other retail and commercial uses like restaurants and salons and similar local uses. Thus, the permit prevents access to these amenities, and especially at a time when the vacancy is high, and after pandemic, there are many storefronts with high vacancy. We do want to make sure that zoning regulations allow for more businesses to occupy these spaces and removes impediments from these small businesses to open. So coming to the proposed changes, Department of City Planning is proposing to remove the BSA Board of Standard and Appeals special permit for all gyms, spas, and licensed massage therapy, which is referred to in the zoning resolution as physical, culture, or health establishments, PCE for short. Gyms and spas would be considered commercial uses that would be allowed as of right. And just want to clarify here that the size makes a distinction in what type of use these businesses would get categorized under. So if these businesses are smaller in size, which is less than 10,000 square feet, they would be basically treated like other local retail uses and would be allowed in all commercial and manufacturing districts, including the districts where gyms are currently not allowed. And large gyms and spas, which is over 10,000 square feet, would be treated similar to uses like banquet halls or music studios, which is a different use group 9. And they will have more limitations in terms of where they are allowed. So they will be allowed not in all districts, unlike the above use. It would be allowed in C2, C4, C5, C6, C8 districts and manufacturing districts. And also they will be allowed in certain C1 districts, which are paired with very high density residential uses, such as primarily these are in Manhattan. So again, the distinction between smaller uses, smaller than 10,000 square feet, and those that are larger is consistent with the way many other commercial uses are treated within zoning. Moving on to the proposed changes for licensed massage therapy. So licensed massage therapy will be treated in the same way as other outpatient medical uses in zoning, which are categorized as ambulatory care or healthcare offices. So this will allow the licensed massage therapy studios as community facilities in most residential districts, except for R1 and R2, as well as in commercial and manufacturing districts. So just to be clear, massage is illegal to practice without a license, and unlicensed massage will continue to not be allowed as a use anywhere in New York City, according to the proposed zoning. Moving on. So this slide talks about certain how the proposed text amendment would address concerns, considering especially as it relates to the noise and vibrations. So as a background, when BSA reviews the applications for gyms, they generally, or they in their findings and review, they occasionally impose conditions to address concerns regarding the noise or vibrations that can result from these uses. So to ensure that these concerns get addressed, even in the proposed text amendment, the proposal will include an additional performance standards for noise and vibration. So a subset of the higher impact gyms and businesses which have potential for sound and vibration impacts. They will require an acoustical engineer to certify with Department of Buildings that the facility is designed to meet these performance standards and that all the concerns are addressed, similar to BSA review before they receive the certificate of occupancy. So these provisions will apply in all mixed-use districts in commercial, mixed-use buildings in commercial and mixed MX district, which is light industrial and residential districts. And those businesses which don't really create noise or vibration or similar issues, which is like a yoga studio or therapeutic services or spas, they won't be required to meet this higher performance standard regulation, but they will be still subject to the New York City noise code. So there is a level of review involved. So with that, we are at the end of presentation, and we are happy to take any questions.
I'm sorry, on the last slide. You
Oh, I'm
said that-
sorry. I unshared it, but go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, I'm sorry. The application is in all commercial districts. This would apply to all commercial districts. Does that mean a residential, does that include a residential community district with a commercial overlay?
Yes.
So that means there will be a 3-story building with multiple tenants, and there could be a gym. And as I stated when we discussed this earlier, that very often gyms, as part of their exercise routines, have loud pounding music that would have a very negative impact on the residents in those buildings. How do you approach to address that?
So I'll just start off, but Kate and Ben, please jump in. So for businesses which are smaller, as mentioned in one of the slides, those businesses would have to still comply with the New York City noise code. And businesses which are known to create loud sounds and vibrations, which are generally the larger commercial gyms, they would have to meet the higher the sound and vibration standards, and also would need the acoustical engineer to provide to ensure that they meet the regulations. And Kate and Ben, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. I'm Ben Max. I'm in the zoning division at the Department of City Planning. Anytime there is a gym that is what we call a higher intensity use, if it's in a building with any other use, then it has to provide, or an acoustical engineer has to provide documentation to the Department of Buildings that it will meet the New York City noise code. As Sanmati was saying, the lower intensity gyms would also still have to meet the New York City noise code, but they wouldn't have to provide documentation. So something like a yoga studio or a massage therapy studio or spa wouldn't have to do that.
So I'm going to ask you, how do you define a high intensity gym? We have had CrossFit here, but we have other gyms, that operate in our community that use loud music as part of their exercise routines, and they often operate from 5 a.m. often to midnight. And how, if they're not defined as high intensity, how will the residents in those buildings be protected?
I just want to clarify that before Ben, you answer that question. With CrossFit, which is no longer
here.
Yeah, it's no longer here, but for a very long time period was, the noise complaints that we received here at the district office, they did not apply for a special permit, but it was a 20 by 100, type of building with a storefront on the first floor. They completely gutted the building. They put weights in. They started their routine very early. They removed the entire storefront. And again, there were multiple families that lived upstairs. And, you know, there were building department complaints and violations issued because they did not have a special permit. I just want to be clear about that. And that was the regulatory mechanism, not enforcement of the New York City noise code, that ultimately led them to find another location, which was more suitable, you know, for their needs. I mean, because that type of establishment, you know, was creating just so much community disruption with noise at the time. The other freestanding gyms, the larger ones, if we've had an issue, you know, it's been easily resolved, and the board has supported every large gym that has applied, and the other yoga type studios, we haven't received complaints. But I just wanted to just make that distinction for you before you answered.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, it's a great question and a great distinction. And it's something that's really tricky to sort of define, and something that we worked kind of a lot on, and spoke with some of the acoustical engineers that were kind of assisting us on this as well. So generally, if you have like heavy weights, if you're having a lot of exercise equipment in unison, something like a Soul Cycle, all of those types of facilities where the like predominant use of space is using weights, those facilities would have to comply with the standard that we're putting into the zoning, regardless of the size of the establishment. And just because you mentioned CrossFit as well, I just want to note that that was one of the primary sort of reasons that we put in place restrictions on the use of those facilities by restricting those facilities to be in completely enclosed buildings, so they can't be taking those weights and using them outside or doing any sort of activities like that.
Josephine, before I move on to Dean, you said you have received complaints about noise from residents from gyms in their in close proximity to residences. Can you give us any more information on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I could tell you, for an example, one of the larger gyms at one point, Harbor had a class in their side alleyway early in the morning. That was a special permit that the board supported, and we reached out to the owner and explained that we had some noise complaints, and he quickly addressed the issue, and it was fine. But again, that's a freestanding building that doesn't have residences above or on the side. New York Sports Club is another example. I mean, I think a number of them are closed. All of the New York sports clubs, the board supported, in addition to, you know, restrictions on noise relating to the actual function of the gym. We've also had stipulations on noise relating to mechanical equipment, because oftentimes they, you know, a few of them had heavy air conditioning equipment that were near residential units that we have stipulated as part of the special permit. And in each case, the applicant, the owner of the facility, did, you know, were compliant. So we've not had an issue. If we ever had a problem, the only exception, the difficulty that we've had was with CrossFit. We have another gym that's on Bay Ridge Avenue that we had an issue with, that had a CrossFit type model that we did reach out with. But I think that the most notable in recent memory has been one that has been located in the commercial overlay in the C1, or it's either C1 or C2 district, along 3rd Avenue.
Thank you. Okay, I see 3 questions. I'm going to start with Dean. He was first.
Yeah, my question is regarding establishments that would open as massage therapy. Am I correct in stating that in Community Board 10, which is not R1 or R2 districted, that they could open up in any part of the residential community?
Yes, it would be treated similar to the way that like a doctor's office or an ambulatory healthcare use would be treated. So yeah, that describes the R1 and R2 exclusion, and then some of the size limitations that are in the R3 districts. But yes, that's correct.
Could you define the size limitations?
In certain R3 districts, and this might apply to only low density growth management areas. So so forgive me if this actually doesn't apply, but it's something like 1,500 square feet. But I could get back to you on that to make sure that if it is actually more widely applicable than I'm thinking.
That would be important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wei?
Wade?
Oh, you're on mute, Wei.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Hi. So question. So if a owner, I guess, wanted to apply for a permit for, let's say, like a yoga studio, right? And then they open it, and then maybe, let's say, a year later, they want to bring some, some bikes in, right? Stationary bikes, and then it becomes similar to like a Soul Cycle facility. Would they have to reapply for a permit because the function changed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
How
a
does that work?
that's a particularly tricky issue. Like if they were to just kind of bring in all of the bikes in one like circumstance, I would think they would have to do that. It would be hard to kind of regulate if they suddenly brought one bike and then like a year later brought two bikes. But I'll have to check with DOB on this to make sure. But I believe they would have to, like they could receive a violation for not meeting the acoustical requirements.
So there is a
documentation.
a check and balance system in place where they would be like monitored like periodically, just to make sure that they maintained the original function of the facility.
Yeah, there's nothing in the text that would say, every 5 years the Department of Buildings has to check on them.
Mhm.
So it's more of a oh God, I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now.
Okay.
It's more of like a regulatory issue that I think would be brought up via complaint.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
question. Anne?
Yeah. I'm with respect to the massage facilities. First, I want to say that, I was around when the special permits became required for physical culture establishments. And it was not a flighty or easy move to make. There was a lot of abuse, a lot of ill-gotten goings on that happened behind the sign called massage. And so I wonder why now massage gets a free pass, especially a free pass to be located in residential zones. And why not acupuncture? Why not Reiki? Why is massage the recipient of the free pass?
I think it has mostly to do with the changes in the industry over the course of the last 30, 40, 50 years to become a profession that is a lot more akin to a medical profession and has pretty strict training and licensure requirements to become a licensed massage therapist. So because of that, we view this more as like akin to things like physical therapy, hopefully that answers the question, but if not, please let me know and I could try to explain further.
Okay.
Can I?
Also, I wonder if city planning has considered or would consider with respect to the gyms and exercise studios as writing into part of the zoning resolution or zoning change, that there be 100% of the glazing to the street to be transparent and visible. And let's say a visibility at least 50% into the depth of the space, that you couldn't have a tiny little waiting room with a wall 6 feet in and the rest of it closed to view. And along the same lines, I think you addressed this a bit, but I wonder if it wouldn't be better to have gyms or yoga studios or any exercise facilities below a certain number of square feet to be absolved from the special permit, not the larger ones. With the
I'm sorry, could you
noise.
repeat the last part?
Yeah, I think that maybe the yoga studios and the smaller scale exercise, maybe personal training studios or whatever, could seem to me be absolved from the special permit requirement, but perhaps not so much the larger, noisier facilities.
When you say the special permit requirement, are you talking about like the acoustical requirement that would be, or the acoustical engineering requirement that they would have to document to the Department of Buildings? Is that?
No, I'm suggesting that maybe the larger gyms should continue to require a special permit.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got you. Thanks for clarifying. Those are some great points and things to think about. Particularly the glazing is something that we hadn't considered yet. So yeah, appreciate the feedback.
And I would say that larger establishment should be defined down. Your definition of a large establishment for many residential communities with commercial overlays is huge. So there could be, so it could have, with removing that, there could be very negative impacts on our communities. I mean, I don't remember on 3-4 or 4-3, but so a massage parlor could be in any building on my block. Am I correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. Similar to how like a doctor's office could currently locate on the ground floor.
Everybody.
And I'm pretty sure there are also requirements for the location of ambulatory healthcare uses when they're in residence districts. I believe they're only required to be on the ground floor, but could potentially be on the second floor only if there is like a completely separate means of access and egress. But that's something I'll double check on and get back to you about.
Please.
Yeah.
Stephanie has her hand up.
I just wanted to build on Way's question, but also to understand the technical language a little bit better, to clarify. So you're proposing that now if I were, let's say, a physical therapy establishment owner, I could basically now, as of right, just go in and establish my business, and perhaps maybe then a year or so down the road, I can add a gym to it, because I've spoken with some physical therapists talking about adding, personal training. And then perhaps after that, I can bring in a massage therapist. And there really is, it's the elimination of the permit entirely. Is that correct? That this business can evolve as of right and add more components to it. And the only thing that's the regulatory piece is whether or not it meets the acoustical engineering or the documentation by the acoustical engineer that it meets the New York City noise code for the larger establishments. Do I understand that correctly?
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good question. And apologies, I think there's some confusion. So if you were like a massage therapist, as like a, practicing physical therapy, well, first I would say that I think physical therapy is already generally treated by the Department of Buildings as an as of right use, akin to ambulatory diagnostic healthcare treatment facilities, right? So that because of that, it's in a completely separate sort of bucket of things entirely from the gyms and spas. And you wouldn't be able to slowly turn that into like more of a gym facility unless it's like within what's already kind of allowed in physical therapy studios currently. Does that make sense?
I would say that sounds very vague.
It makes sense, but given how things have evolved and how there's this confluence of what used to be just spas now being included under the medical category, I can see where the lines are very blurred, and you can have a variety of services. And I just wanted to know, well, I mean, I don't know that you can foresee it, but that means none of it is really permitted. Anything can happen.
Well, let me I guess rephrase this. If you have a massage therapy studio, the second like you start to add other things to it, like anything that would be kind of spa related, pushes it into the category of a spa, and then it would be going against the use group that it is on its certificate of occupancy. Does that make sense? Or
yes, that makes sense, because I was looking for the other regulatory measures.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And that's the way that it would be regulated, would be that, DOB could issue violations saying that that particular use is going against its certificate of occupancy. And then I know you had a question also related to the noise component with gyms. So I just want to clarify that requirement is regardless of the size of the establishment. It's all about like kind of the intensity of the establishment, because you can have a Soul Cycle that's like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, maybe even less, and you have all those bikes going in unison, causing a lot of vibration. Then they would have to meet those noise and vibration requirements.
But you do not have a specific requirement.
What was that?
Do you have a specific requirement?
For noise and vibration? Yeah. So we reference a few international and national organizations for standardization that deal with how to measure and just deal with noise and vibration. So as part of this requirement, the documentation that you have to submit to the Department of Buildings would be showing that you are complying with these standards for noise and for vibration. And in particular, I want to note that one of the reasons we're using these standards is because they speak to vibration as well as noise. Whereas, at least from my understanding, the noise code doesn't speak to vibration as much. And vibration is oftentimes the issue that like say larger buildings and like so you have like a 10-story office building as an example, vibration can like travel throughout the building, whereas like the noise might stay more localized to like the neighboring floors, if that makes sense.
So how would this be measured and how would it be enforced?
How would which part be measured exactly? The vibration component?
I think there are standards on noise, but how would the vibrations be measured and enforced?
Yeah, that's a great question with respect to the vibration component. I could try to speak to the Department of Environmental Protection, who administers the noise code, and see if they, and like to what extent they deal with vibration.
They
So I'll
don't deal
have
with
to,
vibration. Buildings deals with vibration complaints. And DEP has a handful of inspectors citywide.
Mhm.
I'm just sharing from my experience.
Right.
And it's all complaint driven.
All complaint driven.
Yeah.
In fact, with DEP complaints, you have to provide your information. So DEP comes to the home of the complainant for noise complaints. Vibration complaints that I've called in have been handled by the Department of Buildings. And I have found that many of the inspectors are not even familiar with how to capture a vibration reading. You know, we've had to go to supervisors and reach out to our staff our intergov staff at Department of Buildings to get trained. Not every building inspector is trained in vibration complaints.
No, totally. There's a wide range of building inspectors.
Barbara?
Barbara.
I believe you're on mute, Barbara.
Earlier you mentioned similarity between massage therapists and physical therapists. I don't see the comparison. A physical therapist must have a doctorate. A massage therapist, isn't that kind of a loosey-goosey expression?
Well, in my understanding, physical therapists don't have to have doctorates. There are a lot of people that are licensed massage therapists that are, in my understanding, physical therapists.
I would also add I don't know a lot about what is required to become a physical therapist, but the state licenses for massage therapy, these people have to have taken classes in anatomy and physiology, standard like first aid and CPR, things about transmission of disease and infection. There's required like practical training, and then they have to pass a state licensing exam. So there is a standard. It's not just you can hang a sign out and say you're a massage therapist.
Yeah, and they're multi-year degrees as well.
And
Just to be clear, the only change that this text amendment affects with respect to the residential districts is permitting licensed massage therapists to practice in the residential zone. Is that correct? Is that the only,
that's
only
correct.
change to the residential zone?
That's correct. That's the only thing that would apply to residence districts. Outside of, I mean, I will say, like, if there's a commercial overlay in a residence district, then I mean, it's kind of considered a commercial district, like
So
a C1, 2, and
Okay.
like an R4, for example.
So again, why the free pass for the massage therapists as opposed to psychological therapists, for example, or acupuncturists? Why is the free pass going to the massage therapist, which actually carries the very word massage that has been like a hot button for this general category for a long time? Why just the massage therapists?
Well, first I would say that, you know, psychological therapists and mental health professionals fall under the umbrella that we're treating massage therapists under, the ambulatory and diagnostic healthcare treatment definition and use group 4. So it's not like they're getting special treatment over other medical type uses. They would just be treated the same as, you know, doctors' offices or like a mental health, like psychological therapist. And yeah, and I just want to keep on reiterating kind of what Kate was mentioning earlier is that, like the training that licensed massage therapists go under is very thorough and requires multi-years long a degree,
Doris?
Yes, Josephine.
I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand as the host, so.
I saw your hand.
Okay. So I have a few issues, and many of the board members here tonight know that we at Community Board 10 have really handled many community complaints regarding unlicensed massage parlors that had sadly involved in unlicensed massage. They were sources of serious crimes. And while there's, a decriminalization of prostitution, a very big concern about human trafficking. Very emotional for me sitting in this chair for many years, listening to concerns from area residents about an explosion we had back in 2013, really through 2017, of many establishments that were storefront establishments advertising as massage therapy, that had young girls, that had complaints, crimes, etc. And the PCEs, the Physical Culture Establishment Special Permit requirement, was a regulatory tool that was used, the only regulatory tool that we had in the toolbox to address these complaints. And it was primarily a building function, because you're correct that the massage therapists must be licensed. And a number of these are, all of the ones that we had in our district, let me start by saying, were unlicensed massage therapists. The problem, the regulatory issue, is that there's no city regulatory mechanism to determine that. The State Department of Education that licenses massage therapy have a handful of inspectors statewide, a handful of inspectors. So when you say the only regulatory tool that will be available to communities in this city of New York will be relying upon a State Department of Education inspector to come to the city to inspect complaints about unlicensed massage, it will never happen. So I understand, I participated in the leadership briefings. I can't even put to words right now on this call, because I'm getting a little bit emotional because of the human trafficking issues that we experienced here in this district. And it hadn't been for a long time, but today I received another very disturbing complaint that's taking place in the district. And I guess my concern is that because this has been a regulatory tool, and I want to go back, and I know that the committee, we're going to establish a working group, and I want to take a look at the enforcement joint efforts that were made in the past, take a look at what the violations that were issued, really, understand better how we grappled at that time going back in history, how some of these, because most of them were closed eventually. And I think there were many lives that were saved as a result. And I think I want to share with Department of City Planning that I'm really concerned. And I don't normally speak out like this as district manager, and those that are on the board know me a long time, that this is an issue that changed my life. I think that we have to be really careful about this, because getting rid of this regulatory tool that was successful, or I believe, was successful, or requiring it, and that the fact that the city of New York has over the years refused, even for consumer protection. Nail salons have city licenses with the Department of Consumer Affairs. There is no local license. And now you're talking about opening this up in residential districts as a community facility with this one license. Your definition of unlicensed physical treatment establishment is also contrary, I believe, to state law. Because in your revised definition, which when I was at the briefing, we didn't have this unlicensed physical treatment establishment. I didn't see this until just now. you say that similar treatment administered by a person that is not a healthcare professional licensed by the state of New York or under the supervision of such licensee. So that means that you are going to be allowing under this new provision, not only, you're going to be allowing people who are not licensed to perform massage therapy. And that's troubling to me. I think that the committee and the board needs to really look at this closely. I think that the Department of City Planning, the creation of this special permit was for just this reason that I'm concerned about. And I think our communities are, although I think it was a Manhattan-esque issue, but now it's become an issue, at least in Community District 10 and other community districts in the city. I mean, I can't speak for them, but I want to share with you, it's something that we are going to study closely. I know that, many have signed up. We're going to roll up our sleeves to make sure that these concerns are heard by the Department of City Planning as you move forward with this. I was very surprised that massage, these day spas were included in this text amendment. And I think it's something that gives me pause, and I think it's something that should give us all pause. And we need to really look at it clososely. And now I'll be quiet.
And I want to piggyback on
Can I
that,
say something?
because one of the things when we had and still do have problems with massage parlors, we asked that since they are licensed by the state, could the license be posted in the front of the facility? And we never had an answer, and it has never happened. So if somebody's license is at stake, when they are allowing inappropriate things to happen, there's no way to know who that licensee is. So I think there are many, many parts of the problem in communities all over this city that you are not in tune with.
Can I say something also?
Yes, you and hands up there.
Yeah, we worked a number of years ago very hard in forming the Bay Ridge Special Zoning District, and it has protected the residential community and also the commercial community to an extent, but especially the residential community where everybody in the city loves to come to Bay Ridge. And a good part of it is the protections we have under the Bay Ridge Special Zoning District. And while I generally support this text amendment, I cannot support massage therapy studios in a residential area, especially within a special zoning district that everybody who has one has fought for decades to get that done. And now with one sweep of the pen, we're just eliminating it and going into the heart of the residential neighborhood with commercial establishments. This to me is just about a killer for this whole text amendment. And I would ask that at least the special zoning districts be exempted from this in the residential areas, because every special zoning district fought very hard for these regulations. And just for one swoop of the pen, I don't see this happening. It's not good. We know what happens. I would love city planning to exempt for this one part, massage therapy studios in residential areas within special zoning districts. It's a no-go for me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. If I may, I'd like to respond to a few of the points,
Yes,
particularly some of what Josephine said. This might be, it might seem like a nitpicky distinction, but the tool in the zoning that previously was utilized by the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement, who is the agency that deals with these complaints and concerns, was what's called the Adult Physical Culture and Health Establishment text, which was somewhat related but kind of unrelated in some ways from the actual special permit for physical culture or health establishments. And we've worked extremely hard over the past 2 months with the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement to try to maintain that as a tool that the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement can use and utilize. And we've worked with the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement to a point where we think that the new definition that you, Josephine, had referenced, the unlicensed physical treatment establishment definition, maintains the same prohibitions and tools that they find they will need to be able to address these concerns. So I just want to clarify that. I think there are still a few bits and pieces of language within that definition that we're still working with them on, particularly in relation to the under the supervision piece that you had referenced. Although that language had also been taken from the adult physical culture establishment definition, so that in, a spa with licensed massage therapists, people that were training under those massage therapists who had to get their hours to become a licensed massage therapist could still maintain and continue to practice or become licensed. So, I mean, these are discussions that we have been having with OSC and can continue to have. But I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Right. Well, I want to just say to you.
Could you put that in writing to us, please?
Yeah, sure.
And I just want to say too that we work closely with the Office of Special Enforcement, but their resources are limited. And we reached out to OSC, and we will, and I think the committee would like to hear from OSC as well about this. But I did a cursory review of some of the violations that were issued. So some were related to adult PCEs, but others were just clearly relating to physical culture establishments, no special permit. So those violations, were a tool that were used. And I want to impress again is that I agree with Dean. I do think that we must make sure, not only for Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, and Fort Hamilton, but there must be protections for those in our city who are being exploited. And the PCE to property owners, getting that special permit was really what made many of them say, listen, you know what? We don't want this here. We don't want this kind of business here. Taking that away concerns me that we're opening up without another regulatory way of addressing this will open the floodgates. And so I think we need to have a conversation with buildings and the Office of Special Enforcement. I think we need to speak to some of the advocates, who work with human trafficking victims, because it's that important. And I feel that this citywide text amendment, I have to say, is being rushed. Most of the boards in the city are going on hiatus. We are doing everything we can to provide comments to you on this. But this one piece, the massage parlors must be different, must be taken out. We have to take time. We just can't change the regulatory mechanisms in a snap here when we have a population of vulnerable people who can be impacted by this. I feel so strongly about that. And I think we have to make sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed, because these are people's lives at stake. And I say that, from my experience sitting in this chair, and I will make sure that I'm a part of that. And I want Department of City Planning and all those who are working on this to understand and know that. So we will, we will take a look at those and very closely in the working group and be in touch throughout this process.
Yeah, totally. And I appreciate the feedback and understand the concern. And, we've worked a little bit as well with the Mayor's Office to End Gender-Based Violence on this, and I can try to follow up with them.
Have you reached out to other advocates, human trafficking advocates, Safe Horizon and Sanctuary for Families? I mean, these are groups that we have worked with.
Is that a yes or no answer?
What was that?
Reach out to them.
Yeah, we can reach out to
No, you have not as of
NGBV.
yet.
We've spoken with the mayor's office. One of the very first
No.
meetings that we had was with NGBV and OSE.
But you have
Well,
not
together.
worked to the non-GOs. You have not reached out to the non-GOs.
Oh, to the NGOs. Okay, no, I don't think, I personally haven't, but there have been other people working on this that may have. I think possibly with Safe Horizons, but I'm not sure. So I can follow up with the broader team and make sure that we can try to speak to the right people.
Right. And also there is no regulatory requirement. There's no consumer protections that have been put in place. Many of the boards in the city have advocated for that and just hasn't happened. So this, pushing this forward without a regulatory, mechanism here for protection is just, to me, problematic and concerning.
And before I open it to anyone else, I would like to, it's a time frame for all of these text amendments. They have been pushed through very quickly. And even as we have this discussion now, you say that has not been determined. I think there's a huge rush to push these through, and the residents of the city of New York deserve a better process and a complete process for review. Dean, do your hand up before or again?
Oh, you're on mute,
Can't
Dean.
find the button to lower the hand. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anne.
Yeah, just a quick question for Doris and Josephine. A lot of information has passed our emails on this topic, but I was wondering if we have a copy of San Mati's presentation, which was pretty succinct and well summarized in a way that can help our discussions if we don't have it already.
Yeah, we can. I'll pass on the PDF to Josephine, just like we had done for CFP.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
and we've also covered a lot kind of back and forth in this meeting. I'm gonna leave my email in the chat for you guys to, if there were further questions you had, or if there's something that I haven't followed up about, I'm gonna leave it there just for you guys to be able to reach out to me, have a direct line.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And just for our committee, for the newer members, human trafficking in massage parlors and day spas has been a serious issue citywide and within our community. And the community board, working with other agencies, has worked very hard on this issue. And to have any protections that would help these victims, to have any protections removed to protect these victims is not acceptable. So we have a working group that will be working on this more in the next week or so.
June 8th is the working group meeting on the Health and Fitness Text Amendment at 6:30. So if you've signed up for that committee, we're gonna send out, I think Dorothy will send out the Zoom link for that. And all of the materials on the text amendment, including the presentation, will be emailed to board members.
And any other information we can get between now and then.
Yeah, and as you're reviewing, if you have questions, I mean, we'll be able to put them together and maybe get them out to DCP, to San Mati, to Ben, to the team here, to help us in our working group. We don't, we know you're not going to come to our working group meetings, but we will, if there are any more questions, we will definitely send them out to you as we prepare our recommendation.
Wait, do you have your hand up again, Wade?
Yeah, I'm new at all this, so there's a lot of acronyms that were thrown out, and as you guys are talking, I'm like Googling and looking them up.
Yeah.
So whether or not I understood the acronym correctly on Google, like, is there any way I can get a copy of like all the acronyms that everyone's? And I apologize, because I am new to this committee.
You know what? I will share with you, Wei, the acronyms. I hear Stephanie in my head saying to me at her first zoning meetings, "What are all these acronyms?" And we do have a zoning acronym book,
like a handbook.
Like a handbook, yes, we do.
Okay.
And some that were mentioned tonight, like PCE is physical culture establishment.
I have that problem. problem too.
And I mean,
I need to study up.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the whole mayor's office umbrella is just a crazy web of
Acronyms.
acronyms.
OSC
It's
is the
just like,
Office of Special Enforcement.
yeah, and GBV is like, and the word, not the letter, like END, and then gender-based violence.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Gosh.
And DCP is Department of City Planning.
Yeah.
I did look that up.
Okay.
I got that one.
And I regularly say, if we're using these acronyms or terms and you don't understand them, please ask, because there are 10 other people who don't understand either.
Yeah.
So also what I'm going to prepare for board members is a very full PowerPoint presentation on our work with specifically the massage parlors, because really it's going to be the focus of our review, I think. And we are now working on again, we're only two people here in the office, but we are putting together spreadsheets of enforcement actions that were taken when we were working there. And I think we'll share some of the background and some of the work that we went through working with the district attorney's offices at the time. Actually, we've been through 3 different district attorneys here in Brooklyn that we've worked with their human trafficking office. And also, Sanctuary for Families, which was a big help, during that time. Our chair, Joanne Seminara, we spent a lot of time doing research and work, reaching out to some of the advocacy groups. And my hat's off really to OSC, the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement, who really understood the issue, our concerns, and helped us tremendously during, some difficult time. But I know they handle a lot more things today than they did back then. But I think it's important. So I'm going to really work hard to get that prepared, today and tomorrow. So you could look at that in advance.
Right. And I just want to say again, just like, please, if there's anything that was confusing or that I didn't cover, or if you have any more questions or need to follow up on, please feel free to reach out. I'll definitely be available.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thank you.
us as well. Really appreciate the feedback.
Great. Doris, that's it on the agenda tonight.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn and go to dinner.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'm right there
Thank
with
you,
you,
Ann.
Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you all.